with the original Strike Gundam out of their hands and even its spare parts gone, you might think that for their future mobile suit development, the Alliance would look at one of the machines they still had. But nothing could have been further from the truth, because despite their setbacks, the Strike Gundam would remain front and center of the Alliance's mobile suit force. In a previous development history video, I already went over its mass production variants, but the Strike Gundam proper would also be further developed for Alliance ace pilots. Although this wasn't necessarily the first plan they had. Plan A was actually to outfit their elite Phantom Pain Squadron with nuclear-equipped machines. Because of course. But then the Junius Treaty happened and nukes were banned. So the Alliance had to move on to Plan B. War crimes. I mean, the Actaeon Project. During the interwar period, Actaeon Industries, who was definitely not heavily backed by members of Logos, in collaboration with other companies, remanufactured the original 5 GAT machines and then fine-tuned them and upgraded them for their specific pilots. And in the case of the Strike, its pilot would be one of Phantom Pain's top aces, Sven. The Strike he received was mostly identical to the original Strike, but one upgrade was already carried out. The phase shift armor was rebalanced to give it a better power consumption to protection ratio. A change that also caused the colors to be slightly darker. His striker pack of choice then was the I.W.S.P pack. Now, as mentioned in my first video on the Strike's development, the I.W.S.P was originally developed by PMP, ergo the Alliance, but they just couldn't get it combat worthy. The batteries they had simply didn't have enough juice for it to make sense on the battlefield. Something that was no problem for Orb, thanks to Morgan Raid's power extender technology. And while Morgan Raid didn't explicitly help the Alliance with their version of the I.W.S.P pack, their power extender technology had become a mass market commodity. So all that Actaeon had to do was take these power extenders and figure the rest out for themselves, which they did. And this is then how we get two different I.W.S.P striker packs that look slightly different, but are functionally mostly the same. The AQM EM1 for the Alliance, and the P202 QX for Orb. The visual differences are the shield, the sensors on the 115mm railguns, the 105mm cannons, and the thrusters. And I do believe that there could also be one performance difference. One of the reasons mentioned for Orb never using the I.W.S.P in combat was its poor reliability and maintainability, but this is never mentioned for the Alliance version, and they seem to be using the I.W.S.P just fine. Their version also came out much later and after much more testing, whereas the Orb version was probably way more rushed because they wanted it ready for the final battle. So I don't think it's out of the question that the Alliance's AQM EM1 was more reliable than the P202 QX. Heck, the Alliance was so impressed by the unit that they didn't just make multiples of it, but they also further developed it into the Noir Striker, which we'll talk more about in a minute, and mass-produced it. What didn't change though was how difficult it was to use. So, for those mass production purposes, they decided to split its two main characteristics into two different striker packs. The high-speed jet striker pack and the heavy firepower Doppelhorn striker pack, both of which you can find more about in my Dagger development history. And talking about the striker packs, today's video was brought to you by Evix Creations and their new line of Strike Gundam inspired items, which includes this really nice backpack. Just like all their other collections, the colors and design don't scream anime, but anyone who knows Gundam Seed will immediately be able to recognize it. And just like the Strike, this lightweight backpack offers you a lot of versatility. It's got compartments for laptops, tablets, manga, water bottles, and other things, including this convenient side zipper. For lighter missions then, like sneaking into a colony to steal an enemy Gundam, we have this compact crossbody bag. It has a bunch of compartments for different things, and yes, you can put a Gundam in there. And very much the same is true for the waist bag. It is compact, but comes with a lot of different compartments for organized storage. Hang it on your back, or in front of you, if you know you're going to be passing through a seedy area filled with pickpockets. Next up, we have this phone bag, which can carry your phone, or a similarly shaped device, which you can hang from your shoulder or remove the strap, and then buckle it to your belt or one of the other bags. And finally, we have this lightweight yet highly resistant umbrella. A must in any wet country like Japan or Belgium. I also really like the handle that is styled like a beam saber. Buy one and you're a grunt, buy two and you're a Gundam. And not only do I have a 10% off coupon code for you, which is simply Kakarot, but if you act within 7 days of this video going live, there's also 2 extra special offers. If you buy the backpack, you'll get the umbrella for free, and if you buy the waist bag or the crossbody bag, you'll get the phone bag for free. All of the links, as well as the coupon code, are in the description down below. Thanks to Sven's combat data then, the Strike would be developed into the Strike E, with the E standing for Enhanced. Its basic performance remained roughly the same as that of the vanilla Strike, but it got some very important quality of life upgrades. For example, an AI support system, as well as an improved operating system, making it extremely easy to use, even by natural standards. And for increasing the operating time, it was outfitted with a power extender, and its energy-hungry phase shift armor was replaced with the variable phase shift armor. The phase shift armor had to be always active, and would then spike in energy usage to deflect enemy fire, whereas the variable phase shift armor could essentially stay in sleep mode until it got hit, which then caused an energy spike to deflect that enemy fire. Another feature of the VPS was that its energy setting could also be changed on the fly depending on which striker pack was equipped, something that would then be visually represented by a color change. Other upgrades include a different face mask, which allowed for better cooling of the new sensor suite, overhauled armor, more agile limbs, sub-thrusters on the shoulders, and of course, new built-in weapons. The 2 Eagle-Stellung 75mm CWIS guns were replaced by 2 M2 M5 Todesschrecken 12.5mm CWIS guns. While they had less firepower, these CWIS guns were mostly used against unarmored targets or to shoot down incoming missiles, so the larger ammo capacity and the rate of fire of the Todesschrecken were deemed to be more important. The 2 Armor Schneider combat knives then were replaced by 2 shorty beam rifles that were also meant for close range combat. They were the size of pistols, making them easy to move around in close combat, had a higher rate of fire, and only 15% less range than the Alliance's full-sized beam rifles. A worthwhile trade-off, considering that the Strike E could, and would, of course still be outfitted with standard beam rifles like those used by the Strike or even the Duel. And finally then, a weapon that was specifically requested by Sven, the EQS-1358 Anchor Launcher. Basically, these are rocket-propelled grappling hooks that are installed in the palms, the toes, and the heels of the Strike E, and as the wire is shot out, it is coated in a special polymer solution that makes it durable enough to handle up to 100 tons in a 1G environment, even when that 100-ton object is being swung around. And this is what gives these anchors a lot of options for ace pilots. We've seen them used for grappling enemies, capturing enemies, straight up destroying them, and even Spider-Manning around. But while the pilots were positive about these rocket anchors, they did pose their own challenges. From an engineering point of view, the internal structure of the arms had to be completely reworked so that the inclusion of these things wouldn't lower their durability. So as a result, they became much more expensive. And in addition to that, their complex structure also made maintenance more difficult. So yeah, even though the official word is that the Strike E had the same basic performance as the vanilla Strike, while being more energy efficient and easier to pilot, I beg to differ. Its paper specs alone make it superior to the original Strike, and then when in the hands of an ace, the difference becomes even larger. The Strike E was able to push the design of the Strike to the limit, with only one minor compromise. The main feature of the Strike was, of course, its striker packs, which is something that the Strike E did keep. But you might have realized something. The Strike E has upgraded shoulders. And while this was no problem for Sven's striker pack of choice, the I.W.S.P pack, this was a problem with the full launcher and sword striker packs. Now, one solution would have been to simply use them without the shoulder options. But I guess that just wouldn't make Actaeon any extra money, so instead, they proposed the Another Trial striker packs, slightly modified versions of the launcher and sword striker packs that would give the Strike E the full experience. And the Another Trial launcher striker was really the simplest of the two. They simply took the combo weapons pod and stuck it to the backpack, but they did include a swivel joint for easier target acquisition. The weapons themselves remained the same, and when equipped, the Strike E's VPS is changed to a moss green color. The Another Trial Sword Striker then took a slightly different approach. The backpack remained the same, but the Panzer-Eisen rocket anchor now received a special brace where the Midas Messer Beam Boomerang could be mounted. And instead of one of these shields, the Strike E would now be equipped with two of these shields. Just like the launcher, the weapons themselves remained the same, although it is probably likely that the Schwertgewehr here has an actual beam gun instead of simply a beam emitter. And the color of the VPS was now changed to blue. But the most famous striker pack for the Strike E was without a doubt the Noir striker, a development of the I.W.S.P that tried to bring the concept of the I.W.S.P, which was being able to deal with any situation, in line with the design philosophy of the Strike E, which was geared towards close combat. Of course, meaning that the I.W.S.P was way too bulky. As a result, the Noir striker needed to compromise to be made both smaller and lighter. The I.W.S.P has a pair of 115mm railguns and 105mm cannons that both focus on long-range sniping and bombarding. These were replaced by a development of the Exodus MAU M3 linear guns, the MAU M3E4 twin linear guns. These bad boys offer a high rate of fire, lower energy usage, and more damage at closer ranges. Of course, at the cost of their long-range performance. The purely physical anti-ship swords then were replaced with two Fragrak 3 beam blades, meaning that they were now also effective against enemies outfitted with a variant of the phase shift armor. Also, it is highly likely that these are based on the Gaia's Griffin 2 beam blades, because not only do they somewhat resemble each other, but the model numbers are also very similar. MRQ-17X and MRQ-10. And both of these weapons then are stored onto the variable aerodynamic wings that are meant to replace the raw thrust provided by the I.W.S.P's thrusters and to also make the Strike E more agile through arm-back maneuvering. And because they could, they also added a rocket anchor to the Noir striker. The model number now has a T behind it, but it is never mentioned what the difference is, if there is any at all. Its final big upgrade then is that unlike most other striker packs, the Noir striker is protected by VPS, and is also the stated reason why the Strike Noir typically does not use a shield. On the flip side though, this did lead to some production issues, resulting in less than 10 of these striker packs being produced. One was used by Sven, and the others were reportedly issued exclusively to extended pilots belonging to the same unit. Part of this might have been because it was a Phantom Pain pet project, but the main reason was that the Noir striker, just like the IWSP that it was based on, was very difficult to use. And this was despite the Strike E's AI and upgraded operating system. So while the Noir striker could be used by other striker pack compatible mobile suits, it was said that it performed best with the Strike E, a combination that is of course famously known as the Strike Noir. Also, the main reason for its focus on close combat was because it was made to fit within the Alliance's doctrine of team-based combat. It was designed to work well with the equally close combat-oriented Blue Duel and the long-range support-oriented Verde Buster. One slightly customized Strike E then was piloted by Lukas O'Donnell, a coordinator who defected from Zaft and joined the Alliance. Visually speaking, it doesn't look too different, but the major upgrade lies in the limb control system of the machine. The Strike E already had a higher responsiveness and agility, thanks to the combat data from the first Bloody Valentine War, but Lukas was able to push things even further, thanks to his experience with both Alliance and Zaft machines. And so his upgraded control program took elements from both, allowing him to push the Strike E to the limit. Of course, this did also make the machine much more difficult to pilot, potentially to an impossible degree for a natural. And while Phantom Pain and Actaeon Industries were busy at work with that Strike Noir, Fujiyama, who was one of their associates, decided to make their own version of the Strike E to capitalize on their success and to also become a big player in the mobile suit market. They were involved with the Actaeon Project, but they felt like they really needed a mobile suit of their own in order to achieve this. And with some help from Actaeon, they were able to make the GAT FJ108 Raigo Gundam, which means the Thundering Roar Gundam in Japanese. But I prefer to call it the "we have the Strike Gundam at home" Gundam, because everything about this machine is simply copied over from the Strike Gundam, even down to the striker packs. And it's all just modified a little bit to make it just different enough. Except for the beam rifle, the armor schneider, and the shield. Those are just taken from the Strike, verbatim. Although the armor schneiders are no longer stored in the hips, but now on the arms in small shield-esque pockets. And for the names of the bootleg striker packs, Fujiyama again showed their Japanese heritage, naming them after the 3 imperial regalia of Japan: the Magatama, the sword, and the mirror, becoming the Sumbullet, the Calibarn, and the Speculum. Yeah, one of these has definitely gotten a very different meaning in past centuries. Funny name aside then, the Speculum is the most straightforward of the 3 packs, because it is literally just the Ale Striker combined with the data they gathered from the Cosmo Grasper, the upgraded space version of the Sky Grasper that Fujiyama was largely responsible for. As a result, in addition to changing the armor around a little bit, the pack did have higher performance, and thanks to this higher performance, it now also had enough thrust to allow it to mount the same missiles as the Jet Striker, giving it some more firepower. And talking about firepower, we have the Sumbullet, the Raigo's version of the Launcher Striker pack, which also incorporated combat data from the Alliance's other artillery support mobile suits, like the Buster and the Calamity. The main weapon remained largely the same, as the Agni Kai is simply an upgraded version of the standard Agni, but its secondary weapons got a significant boost. Instead of a 2-tube missile launcher, it now had a missile pod featuring 8 missiles, and instead of a Vulcan gun, it uses an upgraded version of the Calamity's Todesblock Plasma Sabo bazooka, the Todesblock Kai Plasma Sabo cannon. And when outfitted with this striker pack, its VPS armor turns a dark green. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have the Calibarn, the Raigo's version of the Sword Striker pack. And again, we see some extra upgrades. Although the upgrade done to the Schwertgewehr seems to be pointless at best, and a potential point of failure at worst. The Schwertgewehr Kai now has a joint between the hilt and the blade, also that it can be slightly angled to prevent its tip from dragging across the ground when stored on the backpack. So instead of simply mounting it higher on the backpack, which could have also solved this problem, they added a joint to the part of the sword that is under the most stress. So yeah, I'm not surprised that they also added the Khaled Bulk Giant Beam Saber to its arsenal as a secondary blade. On its arms then, we find the upgraded versions of the Miedesmesser Beam Boomerang and the Panzer-Eisen Rocket Anchor. The Miedesmesser Kai is mounted onto the right forearm, and it is now a physical boomerang that generates a beam across its cutting edge. And the Panzer-Eisen Kai is mounted onto the left forearm, and now is a larger claw with more attacking power. And in addition to these 3 definitely not bootleg striker packs, it could also still equip regular striker packs. Which then I guess means that the Raigo striker packs could also be usable by other striker pack compatible mobile suits. So all in all, despite being a Strike Gundam ripoff / clone, depending on who you ask, the performance was there. Unfortunately for Fujiyama though, there were no reports of the machines being adopted, nor were there any further developments, so this might be indicative of how their plan to become a core player in the mobile suit market went. And Fujiyama wasn't the only one to try to create a custom version of the Strike. Librarian Works somehow got their hands on a vanilla Strike, and just like Actaeon Industries, they modified it to fit perfectly with its pilot, NDHE, which is short for No Data, High Error. He excelled at close-range combat, so the Strike Gundam was kinda combined with the Ale Striker pack to create the highly mobile Gale Strike. And the biggest change was, without a doubt, the shoulders. These now incorporated an improved version of the Ale Striker's thruster pods, granting the Gale excellent maneuverability in every direction. This then made it especially deadly in close combat, where it could easily outmaneuver its enemies. Other upgrades included better head sensors, which required a different and stronger cooling solution, resulting in a different faceplate. The knee joints were upgraded to allow for better mobility, which then in turn also required better cooling, which required cooling fins in the middle, which then also increased the weight and the height of the machine. And of course, it also got a new striker pack, the Shield Striker. Essentially a slimmed down version of the Ale Striker, which now also mounts the shield on a support arm. Usually the shield is mounted on the lower left arm of a mobile suit, but this isn't ideal when using close combat weapons, and rather than defending the front of the mobile suit, this shield is used for defending the rear of the mobile suit, or to serve as additional flight controls. For the weapons then, it still has the Eagle-Stellung 75mm Seawiz guns, beam rifle, beam sabers, and Armor Schneider combat knives, although they are now mounted onto the shoulders, but it does have a new main weapon, 2 wing saws, with a very peculiar feature. Just like the Armor Schneiders, they vibrate to cut through an enemy's armor, but the frequency of these vibrations can be changed on the fly. So, If the Gale strike can identify the enemy and the armor it's using, it can change to the exact frequency that will give maximum cutting performance. Something that will even allow it to cut through phase shift armor. And on top of that, these blades also serve a non-offensive purpose. Because of their shape, they become sub-wings when stored on the hips, and when in use, they serve as ambac. Again, all for the purpose of making this the perfect close combat mobile suit, which is also where the machine got its name from. The idea behind it is that it can blow through the enemy like a gale, taking out whoever it encounters. And then the final official machine that we have to talk about is a strike variant that was planned, but never implemented. The Gunbarrel Strike. The Alliance top brass's original plan for when the Archangel made it back to base was to assign the strike to Mulaflaga. And because he had high spatial awareness, he would be provided with the Gunbarrel Striker Pack. Unfortunately for the Alliance though, they would lose both the strike and Mu. So the Gunbarrel Striker would instead be assigned to Morgan Chevalier and his 105 dagger, which you can also find out more about in my dagger development history. And then the real final thing that I want to mention is that in the comic BomBom magazine, they had a special kind of Gundam Seed MSV series. They asked for the readers to send in their ideas, and then based on those ideas, B-Craft would illustrate 5 different Strike Gundams. The problem is that even though I do have a description for all 5, I only have a good picture of 1, a really bad picture of 2, and no picture of the other 2. So I'll see if I can get my hands on those magazines, and when I do, that will become the 4th and final part of the Strike's development history. But until that time comes, this has been all for the Strike. So let me know down below which Strike Gundam variant is your favorite. For me, it is very simple, the Strike Noir. Not only is it my favorite Strike variant, it's also one of my favorite Gundams of any timeline. And depending on the day, even my top favorite. But that has been all for this video. Don't forget to check out FX Creations' Strike Gundam collection. As always, a big thank you to the Patreon supporters. I hope everyone watching has a great day, and I'll see you all next time.